So tonight we're going to continue with the study on the number 7 in the Old Testament. And I'm going to tell you about an event in 2 Kings. But before I tell you that, I want to tell you about an event in 1 Kings. And that is that when Solomon was building the temple, it took 7 years. Okay? It wasn't 6. It wasn't 8. It was 7. That's God's number. That's his number of completion. So that's why it's even mentioned. But what we're going to talk about is about Elisha and the Shunammite woman. And we're going to have a very important 7 in this story. So I'm going to start in 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 8. And it fell on a day that Elisha passed to Shunem, that's a town, where a great woman was. Great means she was wealthy and she was prominent. And she constrained him to eat bread. And so it was that every time he passed by, he turned regularly to eat bread at her house. What a kind woman. You know, the Bible promotes hospitality. And so at this point in time, she did not know that he was a prophet. And this is how we know. In verse 9, and she said unto her husband, Behold now, I perceive that this is a holy man. This is after he had already stopped several times. I'm sure it had to do with the things he was saying. A holy man of God, which passes by us regularly. Let us make him an upper room, I pray thee, on the wall. And let us set for him there a bed, a table, a stool, a candlestick, and it shall be when he comes to us, he shall turn in thither. So isn't this wonderful? She's wealthy, she's got a big house, she has an upstairs, so she's going to just set apart that room for this prophet. So every time he comes by, not only does he have bread to eat, he has got a bed to sleep in, he's got a little table with a candlestick and a stool if he needs to study. She's really taking care of him. So, and it fell on a certain day that he came to her house, and he turned into the chamber, and he laid there. The name of the servant is Gehazi. And he said to Gehazi, Gehazi would be with him all the time, Call the Shunammite. And when he had called her, she stood before him. And he said unto him, he's talking to his servant, Say now unto her, Behold, you have been so careful and concerned for us with all this care. What can I do for you? You know, God wants to recompense her for all of her hospitality and generosity. Okay, so he says, what is to be done for you? Would you be spoken for the king? Do you want us to speak to the king for you? Or to the captain of the host? And she answered, I'm perfectly happy. I'm just dwelling here among my people. I don't need anything. And he said, What then to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, Truly, she hath no child, and her husband is old. That kind of seals the deal. She's not having kids. And he said, Call her. And when he had called her, she stood in the door. And he said, About this season, meaning about this time next year, according to the time of life, you're going to have a son. And she said, Oh, no, my Lord. Thou art a man of God. Don't lie to your handmaid. She does not believe it. But you know what? She doesn't have to believe it, because it was proclaimed by God's prophet. It doesn't matter if she believes it or not. You know that when pre-incarnate Christ told Abraham that Sarah was going to have a baby, she laughed. Yeah. Do you know why her son's name was Isaac? Because it means laughter. Because she laughed. She thought, that's impossible. But nothing's impossible with God. So, and the woman conceived and bare a son at the season that Elisha had said unto her, according to the time of life. And when the child was old enough, he was still young. It fell on a day that he went out with his father to the reapers. And he said unto his father, My head, my head. And he said to another lad, Carry him to his mother. And when he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knees till noon. Then he died. So he was a young child to be sitting on her knees, but can you imagine holding your child in your lap for several hours and boom, they're gone. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God and shut the door upon him and went out. It's interesting that she took him up to Elisha's bed. Elisha was the one that had promised this. And that was where the holy man slept. So she thought, I'll take him there and I'm going to head out there and find Elisha. And she called unto her husband and said, Send me, I pray thee, one of the young men and one of the donkeys, that I may run to the man of God and come again. Now the father doesn't necessarily know the kid has even died. And he said, Well, why are you going to go to him today? It's neither new moon nor Sabbath, meaning it's not even a feast day. Why would you go see the prophet? And she said, basically, don't worry about it. It's going to be well. Then she saddled up the donkey and said to her servant, Drive and go forward. Go as fast as you can for riding. Don't worry about me unless I say something. Just go as fast as you can. So she went and came unto the man of God to Mount Carmel. And that's where Elijah had done a great miracle on Mount Carmel. I won't go into that, but Carmel means garden of God. And that's where he lived. And it came to pass, when the man of God saw her afar off, he said to Gehazi his servant, Behold, yonder is that Shunammite. Run now, I pray thee, to meet her, and say unto her, Is it well with thee? Is it well with thy husband? Is it well with thy child? And she answered, It is well. Well, it wasn't. And when she came to the man of God, to the hill, she caught him by the feet. She went right down to his feet and grabbed his feet. But Gehazi came near to thrust her away. And the man of God said, Let her alone, for her soul is in deep distress. And the Lord has hid it from me and hasn't told me. He doesn't know what's wrong with her. Then she said, Did I desire a son of my Lord? And did I not say, Do not deceive me? I'm going to go back to that verse. Verse 16. When he told her she was going to have a child, she said, Don't lie to me. Now she's saying, I told you, don't deceive me, because now he's dead. Then he said to Gehazi, Gird up your loins. That's Old English for get it together, get yourself ready, and take my staff in your hand, and go thy way. If you meet any man, don't speak to him. And if he speaks to you, don't answer him. He's saying, go straight there. And lay my staff upon the face of the child. Now, it's not exactly said why he told Gehazi to do this. But maybe it was to put his claim on the child. But we do know in the past with Moses that his rod was something that God used. I mean, every plague of Egypt, it was with his rod. But it doesn't say here why he told him to put it on his face. And Gehazi passed before them and laid the staff upon the face of the child. But there was neither voice nor hearing. Wherefore he went again to meet him and told him, saying, The child is not awake. Hey, the staff didn't do anything. And when Elisha was come into the house, behold, the child was dead and laid upon his bed. And he went in, therefore, and shut the door upon the two of them and prayed to the Lord. So what I want to tell you about this is, before he even tries to bring the life back into this child, he knows the most important thing he can do is talk to God. And James 5:16 says, the effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. A righteous man just means somebody who's right with God. Meaning if you have his spirit, you're going to be right with him. But that prayer can avail much. And he knows this. He knows this. He prayed to the Lord. And he went up and lay upon the child, and put his mouth on his mouth, and his eyes upon his eyes, hands upon his hands, and he stretched himself upon the child. And the flesh of the child waxed warm. Of course, you know when somebody dies, they get cold. The blood stops circulating. That's what's called the chill of death. Yep. So when he laid on him, he was stone cold. But after a while, he waxed warm, but he wasn't alive yet. Then he returned and walked to and fro in the house. Have you ever done that when you're distressed about something? Just walked? Walking gets rid of stress. And he was walking back and forth and praying. Yeah, he was pacing. And he went up and stretched himself upon him. Here it comes. And the child sneezed 7 times. Wow. And opened his eyes. Now, why wasn't it that he didn't sneeze 5 times? 7 is God's number of completion. And for him to be completely woken up, he sneezed 7 times. Now, I'm going to read the rest of this, and then I'm going to talk a little bit. And he called Gehazi and said, call the Shunammite. So he called her. And when she was come in unto him, he said, take thy son. And she went in and fell at his feet, and bowed herself to the ground. First she gave honor to the prophet, and took up her son and went out. Now, something's interesting about this. Why would he even think about laying on the child? And I'm going to tell you one reason why, is because his teacher, who was Elijah, was his teacher, had the same thing happen to the woman at Zarephath, and her son died, and he did the same thing. He laid up on top of the child, and eventually the child came back to life. So that may be where he got this notion. But there's something else I want to talk about, and that's what I mentioned in the very first verse about her, the Shunammite woman, inviting the prophet in, not even knowing he was a prophet, and saying, eat with me. And then after he did that for a while, now she's making him a place to stay because she thinks he's a man of God. That's why she's doing that. But I want to read a verse in Hebrews 13, 1 and 2. Let brotherly love continue. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. So she did that. When she was inviting him in for bread, she didn't know that he was a man of God. And I'm going to tell you some other instances that are given in the Bible. And one is Genesis 18, which I talked about earlier, when the pre-incarnate Christ and 2 angels appeared as 3 men, and they came to Abraham on the plains of Mamre, where he was, and he immediately ran to greet them and prepared a meal for them. And it was at that time that he told Abraham and Sarah that they were going to have a baby, and she left. They just didn't believe it. But anyway, another instance is when, not too long after that, those 2 angels that were there with Christ went to Sodom. And Lot had a position of authority, and the judge usually sat at the gate, and he was at the gate. And as soon as they came into the gate, they just looked like men. He said, you come to my house and stay. And as the story goes on, those angels save his and his family's life. There's another one. And this is the last one that I know of. But there's probably more. The day that Jesus rose from the dead, he appeared to 2 disciples who were walking on a road to a city called Emmaus. And they weren't two of the 12 disciples, but he had other disciples besides them. And these two were walking on the road, and he kind of blinded their eyes so they wouldn't know who he was, and he walked with them. And while he was walking with them, they were going, hey, have you heard about what happened with this Jesus? Got murdered, blah, blah, blah. And so he starts telling him the truth about the whole crucifixion, and shouldn't the Son of Man have been offered up? And then he started telling them all the stories about the Bible from Moses on. Well, when they finally get to this town, the house where they're going, it's kind of getting dark, but Jesus acted like he was going to keep on walking. He gave them this chance. And they said, oh no, come on, you come in the house with us. It's getting dark. You come in the house with us and eat bread. And they wanted him to stay the night because it was just like now. It was dangerous to travel at night. And so, but they took him in not knowing that he was God. And when they sat down to eat and he broke the bread, it says their eyes were opened and they knew who he was, and he disappeared out of their sight. So, what I want you to learn from this lesson is two things. Number one, the first thing you do when you're in any situation that you don't know, that where you're not sure of what's going to happen, you're not sure what to do, pray. Mm-hmm. God wants to hear from us. He does. Think about you and your own children. Don't you love it when they talk to you, call you and say, hey, I need some advice? They don't do that too often, but when they do, it's a blessing. And that's what it is for God. It's a blessing for him. And the other thing is about being hospitable. You know, this didn't happen to everyone in the Bible. It happened to certain people. But the reason why the writer of Hebrews even mentions it is because it could happen to you. And that's going to be the teaching for tonight, saints.